Good afternoon. I'm Martin Davis from the Royal Geographical Society with the IBG, the RGS, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this Use Geography webinar. Throughout our Use Geography series, we've been talking to geographers across a range of different sectors, helping you to learn more about the many different possibilities that geography opens up for your career. Today, our focus is on careers in transport, utilities and infrastructure, and I'm delighted to be joined by three experts in the field. We have Tom Grahamslaw, Natalie Stirrat and Arantxu Lexartza. You'll learn a little bit more about each of them in just a minute, and over the next 45 minutes or so, you'll hear from each of them about why they pursued their career, and also some of their insights and advice and guidance about the sector itself. Throughout today's session, we'd love to hear from you. And if you scroll underneath this video, you'll find a Slido widget there where you can ask some questions to today's guests. We might not be able to answer all of the questions within the session. If you head to our website after the event at rgs.org, we'll post some more of the answers there, along with some helpful resources about this sector, and also those that we've talked about in previous sessions as well. You'll also be able to watch this session again, as well as all of our previous Use Geography webinars on our website too. So please do take a look at those when you get a chance to. For now, Tom, Natalie, and Arantxu, a very warm welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us today. To start, I'd just like to invite each of you really to just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, maybe your career to date, and what your role is now, the organisations you work for, and kind of what your career looks like today on a day-to-day basis. So perhaps if we start with Tom, and then Natalie and Francis.
Absolutely. Welcome everybody. So yeah, my name's Tom Grahamslaw. I'm an associate with WSP, who are a large engineering consultancy firm in the UK, and across the world. We have offices from Canada all the way through to New Zealand. We've got a great geographical spread. So my background, I'm a graduate of Leeds University. I did a degree in geography with transport planning, and really I sort of found myself doing that really. It was a case where I wasn't quite sure going through school, going through college, what it was I wanted to do. And geography was always the subject, the topic that I enjoyed the most. And really it was a case of just following that passion really, and finding where I was going to land, and happened to land in the transport sector. So following on from my degree from Leeds, I joined a company called Mouchel. Mouchel were bought in 2017 by WSP. So I've effectively been with the same company for the last 12 years. Started off as a graduate, and I've worked my way through the ranks up to associate, where I currently sit. And my role really has changed quite dramatically over the years. So been lucky to be involved in some real key infrastructure projects with some major infrastructure clients across the UK. The standout one really is developing and delivering the managed motorways, which is now turned into Smart Motorways programme, and really working with Highways England to develop that concept, develop the design standards that sit behind the concept, and then moving into a delivery role, and taking forward that concept. And that really has brought me to my current role, which is technical lead for the digital roads vision within Highways England. So Highways England at the minute are looking to transform the way that they work, they operate, and they deliver customer experience, embracing digital, and looking at what opportunities digital through data, technology and connectivity, what that will bring to the way that they work. And so as part of my role as technical lead for that, it's about making sure that the vision of digital roads meets the requirements of each of the directorates within Highways England. I work on a day-to-day basis with key clients across the organisation to make sure their requirements for the next 5, 10, 20 years are mapped into what digital roads is setting out to achieve. So that involves things like day-to-day meetings, workshops with clients, going through those requirements, taking those requirements back into the organisation, and then bringing respective technical expertise from across WSP to resolve some of those challenges, set out a roadmap really of how we'll get from today to delivering those outcomes in the future. So that's me. I'll hand you back to Martin, and hopefully I'll expand on some of that in the next part of the session.
Fantastic, thank you, Tom. I think a lot of the students watching will be reassured that you said when you were studying you didn't really know what direction to go in, and yet after that I've been on that career journey to where you are now, so that's fantastic, thank you. Natalie.
Hi, thanks Martin, and thanks Tom. I have to say my career changes have not been quite as streamlined as Tom's. So I am currently an associate director within Arcadis, sit within the GIS and geospatial team within highways. But I guess how I got there is, I guess, a meander, I would say, through a number of other roles. So I did my undergraduate degree in geography and surveying at Newcastle. And at that point, I chose that because I thought I wanted something practical. I, wanted to be outside and see the real world. I quickly realised that surveying in Newcastle in December is not a space I wanted to be in, and I was much more interested in the nice warm computer and sitting inside. So it then kind of shifted more towards the GIS and geography element. I then, once I graduated, joined a local authority and did planning policy for them, which was really interesting in terms of helping develop that background, that understanding of why people implement things and why you need a policy in place. For example, you're building a new town, what are the considerations that you need to think about that? So it really helped me in that grounding. I then when I was there, I started to gain a more interest in GIS. So I undertook my master's on a part-time basis. I was very lucky in the fact that they sponsored me for my master's because there was no way I could have done it otherwise. I then moved on to the Canal and River Trust, which is a UK organisation that manages the waterways of the United Kingdom. And again, an amazing job in terms of understanding that interaction between the environment and people and engineering and how all of those bits come together. And particular highlight was during the Olympics they owned a number of basins and was kind of calculating how many super yachts could they fit in the basin for people who wanted to come to the Olympics. So you find yourself doing all these random things that you never even knew were jobs that people did. After that, I then did a very big jump and moved to Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. There's a lot of construction there, as probably you know, and so I found myself as a GIS professional working on a number of secondments, but supporting a large amount of master plans and mega construction projects across Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain. And that was for me an amazing opportunity because it makes you realize that the world is a big place, and what you think is standard practice, maybe people do it slightly different. It was great in terms of that melting pot and engaging with different people from different backgrounds, different experiences. And so I stayed there for 5 years. I learnt a lot, a hell of a lot, and particularly around the commercial side, which is, I think, something within consultancy is quite important because the technical aspect is one side, but understanding why you're doing it, the scope and the business model around it is very important. I then transferred back over to the UK, so I've actually been with Arcadis for 9 years, but this is the advantage, as Tom was saying, of working for big organisations, is that you can transfer across and there is that flexibility, and I've definitely taken the benefit of that. So yeah, now I've found myself in the southwest, worst places to be. And I manage a team of 54 geospatial professionals across the UK and India. what does my day-to-day job look like? I hate to say it, but on the phone a lot. The thing I love about consultancy is change. People say the only consistency in consultancy is inconsistency. But I love that. You know, you could be working on a job for 6 months, you could be really focused on a highways job, and then 6 months later you're looking at a, you know, residential building, a master plan of something else. So there's continuous change. So I would say if you get bored easily and you're looking for something that's, you know, maybe not, you know, a standard, maybe consider a consultancy route. So yeah, our staff work on a whole range of infrastructure projects, lots of the mega construction projects. I'm sure me and Tom have probably worked on the same projects across the UK. And then we also work on projects overseas as well. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Fantastic. Thank you, Natalie. I guess that speaks to the diversity of a large organisation like that as well. There's just so many different roles within them, so many different locations around the world as well. You mentioned time overseas as well. Yeah, so fantastic to hear some of that. Garansu.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Siransu and I'm a senior scientist in the water team at Arup in Leeds. Again, there's quite a few parallels with Natalie and Tom, and also quite a few big differences on my career path and what I do. Academically, I started doing my undergrad in science, so a mix of physical geography and geology. And after that, after some couple of years working as an science communicator, I did a master's in international environmental science in Sweden, of all places. And after that, I moved to academia, and I worked at the University of Sheffield for 4 years as part of a large research project. Because of the time I was there, I did, at the same time, I managed to squeeze a PhD in geomorphology. And whilst working on that research project, I had my first contact with Arup, which again is a global consultancy. So we just collaborate as part of this research project. We have to interact with the real world, so to speak. And my interaction was with the project that we were doing at the time. After that, I worked for a couple of years for my home local authority in a small town near Bilbao. And after that, I got a call from Arup saying, we need somebody quick. Are you available? And I was, so I came, or I went. I joined the water environment and flood risk team. And within that team, we've got like a smaller sub-team called the catchment science team, which is mostly made of geographers, but not only. We've got a couple of water quality specialists and more environmental sciencey oriented colleagues. I work a lot with engineers, obviously. This has been an engineering consultancy, mostly civil and water engineers, but also with transport planners and others. I work a lot with ecologists. And the reason for that is, especially in the case of infrastructure work, a lot of work we do is related to Water Framework Directive compliance and environmental impact. So whilst people like Natalie and Tom are working out the details of the roads, we look at what the potential impacts and required mitigation is. And very often, and that's probably one of the nicest bits, we get to design what that mitigation needs to be like in terms of habitat protection or habitat improvement. I've worked a lot with water companies in terms of utilities. Again, to some extent, looking at what as owners of assets in rivers, what their obligations are under current legislation, which is mostly the Water Framework Directive. So working out a lot of like solutions for fish passage, river restoration, things like that, but also helping them in other kinds of plans, like, for example, planning for drought and other operational issues. And a key area in which my water team works is flood protection, especially with Environment Agency in England, but also in Wales and Scotland with the local regulators. Currently, again, these things we've been in big companies. I'm actually in Lima, Peru, working on a role called River Basin Specialist as part of a government-to-government project with Peruvian Authority for Reconstruction, trying to help them deliver better and more resilient infrastructure for education and health. And especially there's a large program of flood protection against extreme events like El Niño. So that's
fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you, Aransu. Incredible as well that in the middle of all of that, you just threw in passing that you squeezed in a PhD. Make it sound so simple. I'm sure there was more to it than that. But no, that's fantastic to hear. It's clear that with our three panelists here, we've got a wealth of experience across the sector. Fascinating as well to hear the steps that you each took to get to where you are today as well. Now there'll be students watching today who maybe are considering getting into the sector in some form or another, but might not necessarily be too sure where to start or what the first steps along that journey might be. So I wonder if each of you could share some of your own insights and advice on getting into that, getting into the sector, that kind of initial first step. Maybe some of the emerging opportunities that are around in the sector at the moment, and how to make the most of being a geographer along the way as well. So perhaps Natalie, if you'd like to go first on this one.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think at the moment is a particularly challenging time for everybody, but it's also, there's an exciting time. The whole, mobility question is up in the air. How, why we, the bigger question, why are we still designing roads and whatever? And so now is a chance to really do something different. And so I think that, if you're thinking about mobility, what are going to be the future needs? How are people, what are those requirements, and how do we build a country that meets those requirements? I think that's a really interesting space to think about and consider. If you think about, I don't know if anyone's aware of the government green book, kind of again builds on that kind of policy side of how infrastructure should be built in the UK. Electric vehicle charging is a complete game changer. Again, is going to completely alter how we move around the UK going forward. So I think, yes, there's a lot of uncertainty at the moment, but it's also a real chance to have that feeling that you are contributing to society, that you are making an impact to society, which I think is what everybody wants. And the reason I love geography is it's around people and places. How do people interact with a place and an environment, and likewise how that environment impacts people and how they behave and react, and really that really links with kind of engineering and what happens. So they would be my two pieces of advice. I guess the other ones are around kind of technology. Technology is moving at a massive pace. I think it's important to know around technology. I know there was a question that came in around, is GIS an essential skill or essential, I don't think it's essential. I think but you can't be blind to the fact that a lot of things are, requiring a knowledge around technology. I don't think you necessarily need to pin yourself to a particular technology, but I think concepts and understanding around data and that kind of thing are important, because what you're doing, you're not doing it in isolation, particularly in a big engineering project. You know, information feeds in from the environment, you know, the EIA, but likewise you're then passing that information on to somebody to construct it. So you need to understand how all those pieces fit together. So I think that's one. And then where I think geographers come in, and I think where the differentiator is, I think analytics. You know, lots of people can put a point on a map, but what does that mean? What, you know, how do you get insight from that? I think that's the differentiator that geography provides, maybe over other subjects.
Great.
I don't know if I don't think I answered the question there at all.
No, you did, absolutely. And you mentioned there as well the kind of interaction as well between people and places, which I guess gets to the core of a lot of what geography is about, and the skills that geography bring to the sector in the first place. That's great. Thank you. Tom.
To be honest, Natalie stole the thunder there, because my two things that are really hot on the agenda at the minute within certainly our industry are net zero. A lot of clients have that right at the top of their agenda. A lot of local authorities, for instance, have declared climate emergencies, and everything that we are doing has to consider the impact on the environment, the impact on carbon footprint, and the likes. And you know, some of the examples that Natalie gave there around, you know, electric vehicles, you know, some of the government targets to ban all petrol and diesel cars by 2030, I think it is. That's having a significant shift on the way that we look at transport projects in the UK. And I know a lot of other countries are following suit. Maybe some haven't got as challenging targets around net zero as we have in the UK. But certainly they will be following suit, like I say. The second really links in with technology, and I call it digital, but you know, it's around what Natalie was talking about in terms of data, technology, and from a transport perspective, connectivity as well. There's a huge piece around connected and autonomous vehicles, and certainly when you look at road networks. Rail, for instance, are further ahead in the connectivity space. You know, a lot of automated trains and trams are already in use across transport networks, both here in the UK and globally. And so a real understanding of that digital space, what the future is likely to hold. We have a concept in WSP called Future Ready, and it's about thinking about what the future could bring, but designing for it today. So it's about looking at significant trends, the likes of technology, the likes of climate, resources as well, and also, as Natalie said, society. You know, they're four real key pillars within global trends that we're seeing, not only within our industries, but industries across the piece. A couple of pieces of advice, certainly from my career, about how to get into the sector. One of the things I look back on quite fondly, but also think that it probably gave me the ticket to my first job, was work experience. I can't put sort of enough emphasis on differentiating yourself from other candidates. It's likely that when you are applying for jobs, you're not going to be applying solely for a job, and you're not going to be up against anybody else in terms of an interview. And there will be competition for roles, as there always is once you're in a career and you're going for promotions and things like that. That never changes. But really differentiating yourself from others just really gives you that head start. It also gives you something to talk around in the interview that, again, will differentiate yourself. But yeah, work experience. I think that the other angle to the work experience, not only getting out of it what you need in terms of a little bit of experience, understanding what the role covers, understanding what the industry is about, but it also gives a prospective employer a way of trialing you as a potential candidate. And I know a lot of my colleagues have gained work experience, and then the company's taken them on and actually given them a job because they've done such a fantastic job over that period. So it's just one of the things that I would recommend. that's probably me, Martin. Thanks for that.
That's great, thank you. It's probably worth mentioning there as well that if anyone is particularly interested in looking into GIS and pursuing that kind of route, we do have another use geography session on the 10th of March, but we'll be covering that in more detail. So do come along to that one. That one's of interest as well. Irantu.
Yes, Natalie and Tom have covered a lot, but yeah, I think that topics they've mentioned, for example, the sustainability element is big now. I could add to that, like the Environment Agency now, for all their projects, they're not aiming for net zero, they're aiming for net gain. In every single project, they have to demonstrate that that's what they're going for. And I think that, yeah, related to these very closely, climate change in general, especially in the resilience flood protection field, is quite a big element. In terms of digital, even if you're not working directly in the infrastructure designing element, you will still need to have at least a user background. We do, like, unlike Natalie, I complain when I'm out, but I love being out in the field regardless of the weather if you work in England, because it is what it is. But hardly anybody, at least us in Europe, we don't go out with paper maps and pens anymore that get all destroyed when the rain comes, and everything is digital, which makes it easier to then upload all the data, but you still need to then be able to manipulate the data and process it and analyze it and come up with the answers. Yeah, the situation currently has made it a bit difficult for work experience, but there are still opportunities, especially like for I know that some consultancies haven't had them in the last year, or haven't had as many in the last year, but many still have had graduate programs commence almost as normal, with graduates working from home. But yeah, there are still opportunities out there, and I think a great thing for geography is that it is one of the most transversal disciplines that there are out there. So anything that you do, you can probably, you should be able to find an application for in a different job. And I think that, yeah, like our career backgrounds can show that quite well. Like you can, if you manage to do a bit of work experience with local environmental NGO who are still doing outdoors things, or helping them with the data or whatever, that is all stuff that is going to help you along the way.
Bit of work experience goes a long way. All three of you have touched on themes there, I guess related to some kind of similar themes of climate change, net zero, and some of the kind of policy impact that's having legislation here in the UK. I guess that's making this a challenging time to work in the sector, but also a really interesting one as well, and throwing up a lot of new opportunities. Looking beyond the UK, though, I can see we've got a few questions coming in from some of the people watching. I know Irantu and Natalie both mentioned the time you spent overseas. Some people are exploring those possibilities for themselves. I wonder if you could just maybe share a little bit more about that, how those opportunities come about within your organisations. Is it kind of new roles that you apply for, or is it kind of moving around within your role? So I wonder if maybe Natalie or Irantu, you could.
I'll let Irantu go first, because then I won't maybe repeat what she's going to say.
Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think in my case, in the past, I've worked on projects that were overseas, but I haven't actually moved overseas. In a couple of occasions, I've gone out for a visit. But yeah, so that's the thing when you've got an area of interest and the project is in a way, so then there will be It depends on who's running the project, but there will be a question around like, who's got the expertise for this and is interested. And sometimes it will be once you've done it once, then people will come and ask. So like, yeah, we've got this project in Georgia for a hydropower. Do you want to have a look? The project I'm currently working on in Peru, yeah, that was a specific project that a consortium done, formed by 3 companies. We applied for it, supported by the UK government, and then roles were identified, and I applied for my role and I got it. I think that, yeah, my experience was quite a good match, but also I speak Spanish, which is quite a big help in Peru. So yeah, and then yeah, I've only been here for a month, so and I can't really go back now. I'm here for a year, and it's a bit tricky to go back now. In any case,
not really typical at the moment. Natalie, does that echo your experience?
I guess mine's slightly different. So for organisations such as Arcadis, so I guess it's to remember, although it's a big global organisation, each country or region is kind of operating as its own business. So they would then advertise roles as you would normally. It just happens to be in a different country. So yeah, that's how I got my role. I just applied for it, and then when I came back, I finished that contract and then started a new contract in the UK. So in effect, it was like 2 different jobs, because I had 2 different employees. They just all under the umbrella of the same company, if that makes sense. But yeah, within ours, we have internal adverts where people are free to apply for those roles if they wish to. And a bit similar now that I have experience in the Middle East. I get phone calls now going, or do you know about XYZ, and asking for advice and things around it. So again, it's kind of, and I guess I was following on with that work experience, and I didn't do any work experience, I have to say. I'm probably the complete opposite. But networking, don't underestimate networking. I'm quite active on LinkedIn, but people kind of showing that they're reading stuff, that they're interested, and we definitely notice people. So for example, when people apply, we go and look on LinkedIn, we go and see what they're looking at, what they're interested in. So I would definitely, that would be a way of kind of helping, I guess, that kind of stand out, show where you're interested in and what what space you want to be in. And likewise, reading around subjects and things is also not a bad thing. Things are evolving very quickly, so it's a way of demonstrating how you're keeping up to date with current movements in things. So that would be my kind of recommendation there, around how do you stand out, how do you make yourself that differentiator.
Great, and I guess one leads to another as well. Work experience gives you a networking opportunity, and networking might open up work experience opportunities as well.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
well worth exploring those avenues. A key question we've got coming in from many students is the question of postgraduate study. And certainly if you head to our website, the RGS website, and look at the Choose Geography as a postgraduate page, you'll find a lot more of kind of broader information there. Around 1 in 5 geography graduates pursue some kind of postgraduate study. Obviously, postgraduate study comes in several different forms. But specifically in terms of this sector, how vital would you say postgraduate study is? Do you think is it something that's kind of crucial to have in CVs when applying for positions in your organisations, or are there other entry pathways that people tend to take as well? So pick up that one.
Do you want me to pick that up, or do you want to pick it up, Tom?
I can start, and then you can probably build on my answer, Natalie. So certainly within WSP, it's not essential. It's obviously a great nice to have. It shows that commitment to education, that further education piece that recognises then that somebody's got more knowledge and another differentiator type thing. I think that certainly in the field that I'm in, people look more towards professional accreditations, so the likes of chartership. I, for instance, am a chartered geographer, which I'm sure you'll touch on, Martin. It's one of the key accreditations from the RGS, and that's looked on very, very fondly, sort of within WSP. Others within my organisation are chartered engineers and the likes, and that's what I would say is more important than postgraduate degrees. But like I say, it's it demonstrates that further understanding of the subject, that commitment that's been made by that individual, and like I keep saying, that differentiator.
So I did my master's much later, as once I'd started work, and part of the reason for that was because I wanted to make that next step, and I was applying for jobs, and I found I wasn't even getting interviews because I didn't have that piece. So that was part of my rationale of why I did it. But I think now there's more opportunities within business. There's apprenticeships, there's lots more career development within a company now than maybe there has been before, around kind of investing in their people. I know that we've got a number of staff that are kind of doing postgraduate studies while still working. So I don't think it's a blocker. I don't think it's a must-have, probably similar to Tom. But yeah, again, accreditation is if you want to progress, you need to have accreditation, and you need to be demonstrating that you're on those kind of pathways. And there's a number of options. RGS is obviously the main one for geographers. But yeah, there's a number of other options depending on what your speciality is.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and if you head to the professional section of the website, you can read all about chartered geography in a lot more detail there. A lot of the students watching are asking about finding opportunities. So obviously you mentioned the importance of not only looking at different organisations and the roles that they have available, but also in terms of work experience as well. Are there any particularly good places to look for these opportunities? Is it a case of looking at organisation websites, or are there other kind of key hubs where these things tend to be advertised? Where's a good place to start?
I don't think there's any secret place that has all of this. I'm afraid there isn't a one-stop shop of which lists out all the interns and work experience. As far as I know, it'd be amazing. Maybe this is our next business idea of what we can do. But I think unfortunately it is, sifting through, identifying companies that you align with, that you like, and liking their ethos, their culture and behaviour, and then kind of looking and sort of watching what they're up to. I don't think, as far as I know, I'd be interested if the others have got. I don't think there's a quick ticket, I hate to say, around that.
I'd completely agree, and I think to be honest, you'll get out of it what you put in. So like Natalie says, it's about looking at different companies within the sector that you think you're interested in getting into. It's about understanding from their websites what their culture is like, the types of projects they're working on, and it's about you picking the company as well as the company picking you. That can be as important. The one thing I would suggest, and Natalie touched on it before, is LinkedIn. It's a fantastic forum nowadays for building contacts. You can quickly research who works in certain industries. You can make connections with people quite easily. There's so much information on there that people are sharing on a day-to-day basis on topics that you can connect with. You can connect with the individuals that are posting. And I think in some respects, that's a great way to try and leverage work experience opportunities. There's nothing stopping you contacting, messaging individuals within organizations, just as a prospective ask to whether there is any opportunities in a certain field. that's something that you may want to look into.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, feel free.
There are a couple of there are a few web pages where you can look. For example, if you are after a graduate program, that will tell you where, for different fields, where the process starts for different companies. However, that is not a substitute. So that could be a first stop to just filter what you might need. That is not a substitute for then going to the web page. You need, key thing that Tom was saying earlier is to demonstrate that you've done your homework and you understand to the level that you can understand what the company does, and then that might help you identify key people in the company that you might contact. And and unfortunately, and I agree that for placements it's not as straightforward. But on the other hand, I think that's both a problem but also an opportunity, because I think that placements very often work on that way, that you approach the company and say, I want to a placement. Is there anything that you can help with? And I know in for instance, it's been the case that somebody maybe in Newcastle has been approached and they didn't have an opportunity at that time, but they've contacted us in Leeds or Manchester saying this person looks like might be a good fit with your team. So I couldn't be shy. And then if it's a small organization, so NGOs or charities that you're after, then definitely don't be shy and contact them early and directly. I know that there are some undergrad programs and MSc programs that have work placement model. So if you've got one of those, it's a good way to try and make a contact. I know that geography in Leeds, for example, have got one, and they can. They would place you either with a consultancy or utility companies, for example, Yorkshire Water does take placement students. So you'll need to dedicate a bit of time to that and start early, because a lot of their graduate programs start very early, and it's quite a long
I guess
process.
there's no substitute for taking the time to do your research and take the time to make those connections and establish those networks as soon as you can. Really, it's never really too early to do that, is it? Our time today is almost running out. It's almost time to draw this to a close. But I'd just like to go back around the panel one more time and really just ask, what one message would you like to pass on to someone starting out in the sector right now? I guess if you could turn back the clock and talk to your younger self, what advice would you give? I guess is there something that you wish someone had told you sooner as you were starting out on that journey, as many students are now? So perhaps if we start with Iransu and then Tom and then finish with Natalie.
I think my path was a bit accidental, so I'm not sure how you solve that, but I think that yes, probably trying to get an awareness of what happens in the real world earlier would be my key advice. So you can, there's nothing stopping you changing paths afterwards. So it's not a problem if you don't get it right, because all that experience again is going. Even I would even go as far that depending on what it is, even work that you do that is not related, you can relate to in some cases. But yes, start thinking about earlier and be curious. And if you're walking around and seeing something happening that looks like, I wonder how they do that, or why they're doing this project and what you have to do to be involved in a project like that, then make a note of what it is and then start researching, because that might start narrowing at least a path for you.
Thank you. Experience is never wasted. Tom.
So I've got sort of two, but they're linked. The first really is don't be afraid to fail. You know, a graduate coming into a new industry isn't expected to get things right first time. Linked to that, for me, it's all about enthusiasm. So what we like to see our graduates doing is really embracing opportunities, you know, saying yes to getting involved in challenges, and trying their best. And, you know, if you try your best and you fail, then it's just a life experience. And, you know, you chalk it up, you learn the lessons for the next time that challenge comes around, and you get it right second time. Yeah, like I say, nobody expects you to get it right first time, but so long as you're enthusiastic, you throw yourself into the deep end, you take on as many opportunities as you can, you'll undoubtedly succeed.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, mine's kind of linked, and someone said this the other day to me, and it really resonated. Is about being authentic. So being true to yourself, and particularly when you start out, you see all these other people, and you know, to some extent you kind of want to mimic them, or you think, oh, I'm gonna, you know, take that, but you know, that's very exhausting, you know, trying to be somebody that you're not. So yeah, being authentic and true to yourself, and linking to both, you know, trying something, and if it doesn't work, then that's fine. It's then moving on to something else, and there's loads of learning that you can take from that. But you know, we're all working for an incredibly long time. It's really important that you're happy and that you enjoy your job and your career. So yeah, really take the time to think about what it is that you enjoy and makes you happy, and then, you know, and again, look at the companies and see if they fit with what you believe as an individual. And it's not just about them wanting you, it's about you wanting them kind of to work for them.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Thank you each very much, and thank you for your time as well, and for your expertise and really insightful comments. That's all we've got time for today, but to all of you who've attended, thank you too. We'll be sending an email out shortly with links to some more resources, and a reminder about our upcoming events as well, and also a request for some quick feedback so we can make these webinars as useful as possible to you as you explore possible careers with geography. We'll also be including some information about the Society and some of the resources that we have available to help you make the most of your degree and to explore and develop your career after you graduate. So do make the most of those resources as well. But for now, from our panelists and from us here at the RGS, thank you and goodbye.